appointment letter.
The parents shift their home just a month before Aftab's arrest because they knew also of the nature of aggression and torture Aftab had subjected Shraddha to.
Namaste, Jai Hind, and this is a conversation I always look forward to with the Padma Bhushan Anupam Kher ji. In a year when other actors are struggling, he's been part of projects which have grossed more than 500 crore. Kashmir Files, Kartikeya 2, and of course, Unchai. Namaste Anupam ji.
Namaste.
जैसा आप हमेशा कहते हैं जी कुछ भी हो सकता है.
कुछ भी हो सकता है. You know, when you were giving my introduction, I had a smile on my face because my reference point to my life always goes back to the day I landed in Mumbai, which was on 3rd of June 1981, and I had 37 rupees in my pocket and plenty of dreams, and God has been kind, audiences have been kind, that most of the dreams have come true, and I keep dreaming. But I had not dreamt that one day Anand will introduce and say that 500 crores, because people have started measuring success not with talent but with money, which is fine, which is important. Economics is important. So in that sense, Kashmir Files, Kartikeya 2 and Unchai is that boy from Shimla is very thrilled. And Anupam Kher is impressed with himself.
No, and somewhere are you thinking to yourself, even I didn't think that this could happen with me at this stage of my career.
मतलब ऐसा नहीं है कि अगले साल फिर नहीं होगा तो मुझे अफसोस होगा या पिछले साल नहीं हुआ था. Even though I have been part of amazing blockbusters, दिलवाले दुल्हनिया, हम आपके हैं कौन, हाँ कुछ कुछ होता है, so many of them. But usually the credit always goes to, because also the hero's life is on stake because he has to get the audience. But in this, unusual stories,
correct,
Kashmir Files about Kashmiri Pandits genocide, no song, no comic sequences, nothing, depression, sadness, tears, 350 crores. Kartikeya 2 started with 50 theatres in Hindi about this person's search for Krishna, and the actual philosophy behind him, how the Krishna is the creator of so many things, and grew to 2,000 theatres. Unchai, about 3 older people, and they decide to find their own Everest within themselves. Unusual film. So that is what is interesting. It's not about heroism, it's about the courage. It's about hope. It's about a possibility of goodness. So I always say that goodness is being cool is being goodness, believing in goodness. Being cool means being honest. And so when your personal philosophy matches the kind of work you do, and that gets success, it's a great feeling.
Yeah, you just feel that finally. अब जाके सही फूटी
हाँ उस हिसाब से. वरना तो मुझे तो लगता है कि मैंने जो फिल्में मेरी नहीं भी चलती थी, जो मैंने फिल्में बहुत बुरी भी थी, जिनमें मैंने बड़ी फुहड़ एक्टिंग भी की थी, but they were also part of my journey.
Yeah.
And life is about journey, not about destination.
Yeah, it's the journey.
So I have never disowned, or I've never sort of looked down upon the things that were not great, because I did that with them also with great joy.
But let me ask you, did you expect Kashmir Files to take up 350 crore, or do you think that that movie has actually done a lot of things at various levels in society also? Is it narrative changing, and also in the Hindi film industry?
I think Kashmir Files is the turning point of Hindi cinema. Some people may want to sort of not believe that, but about 25 years later, when you will write about the Hindi film's history, till then, you will say the Kashmir Files was the turning point. Sheer brilliance of the writer, director, Vivek, and actors and technicians to pick up a subject. Why is it so successful? Because first of all, it's so believable. Means even when I talk about it, it's so sad that what happened. Then it's great cinema. The cinematography, the putting of things together, the color blue. It's great cinema. It's one of the finest films India has produced. Third thing, the guilt it brought to people.
Yeah.
The guilt that we did not know that 500,000 Kashmiri Hindus were thrown out on one night, 19th of January 1990. So that means there is humanity alive in us. That we did. So we wanted to go, and actually that was our tribute to, that was the tribute of the audience to all those people who were killed during this horrific butchery and throwing people out of it. So अंदर मानवता कहीं जिंदा है, तो उसके पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से एक तो सिनेमा की ब्रिलियंस है, एक अपने अंदर के जिंदा होने का एहसास है. ये टर्निंग पॉइंट है हिंदी सिनेमा का.
एक और, did it also expose the fissures within the Hindi film industry? How divided or how?
अब देखो, कुछ इस तरह की चीज़ होती तो होता ही है. हर सोसाइटी में हर जो आदमी, मेरे हिसाब से, I will not use the word divided, but everybody has an opinion. Anybody who votes has a philosophy of anybody. You vote, I vote, these cameramen vote. So the person they are voting, that means they believe in that party. So to say I'm a political person, but if you're putting a vote there, you are not apolitical, you are political. It's just we do not know about it. It shocked people. It shocked the Hindi film industry. It shocked the Indian film industry. It shocked the pundits who say, ye chalta hai, ye nahi chalta. It's a 17 crore film. If you go by the economics of it, it's the biggest hit of all times. Something like this happened in a film like Jai Santoshi Ma.
Got it.
You know, and also about a subject where a lot of people want to have their own opinions. ये हुआ था, नहीं हुआ था, इतने लोग मरे थे, ऐसा कैसे है? Because they wanted to put the reason for this doing well. Sometimes they said, oh, the Prime Minister spoke about it, or the BJP went ahead, or the Hindu Mahasabha, whatever it is. But worldwide, it has affected people.
Yeah.
It is not. So, वो blame game चलती रहेगी, but the truth has no alternate. Truth is truth.
But and I can be candid with you, but 2014 के बाद, and with Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the BJP, why are there positions that have been taken within the film industry? Was this always the case? Because you've been part of it for a few decades. Or has it now manifested that they're clearly...
It was not so. I think cinema was the only place where there was no obvious division about it. Cinema was the only place where there was no obvious that ye yahan ka hai. Because when you go and watch a film, you are not a Muslim, you are not a Hindu, you are not an Isai, you are not a Sikh. You are an audience, and darkness में आप film देख रहे हैं, आपका direct रिश्ता है. But I think it did start with 2014. It did start with that letter that was circulated among the film people, where they said that we should not make Mr. Narendra Modi the Prime Minister. So there was a written document, email. So it did happen, and that's where people sort of say that, why should you dictate to me what is my view on who should become the Prime Minister or who should not. But having said that, ये चलता रहेगा. Because I think that Mr. Modi's philosophy of carry on doing my work and rest the people, let them do what they want to do. And I still feel that if somebody does better than him or better than their government, it will change. My concern comes not, people say, oh, ये तो उन्हें पसंद करते हैं. No, मैं अपने देश को पसंद करता हूँ. मैंने शायद आपसे पिछले इंटरव्यू में मैं बोला था. मेरी लॉयल्टी मेरे देश के साथ है. It's so strange that you wore this thing and I wore this thing when I met you before the interview started, and I said, what an amazing feeling. तो ये प्रूफ है, हम जो भी हैं अपने देश की वजह से. और मैंने आपसे एक लाइन लास्ट टाइम भी कही थी कि मैं अपने देश से 8 साल छोटा हूँ. सो कल को अगर कोई भी जो इस समय ऑपोजिशन में है वो देश के बारे में सोचेंगे बजाय ये सोचने के कि हम इनको कैसे गिराएं, वो देश के बारे में सोचेंगे तो मुझे वो भी अच्छे लगने लगेंगे. अब आप क्रिकेटर्स के बारे में तो ऐसा नहीं सोचते हैं, आप लगते हैं कि देश के लिए खेल रहे हैं. आप नीरज चोपड़ा के बारे में तो ऐसा नहीं सोचते हैं कौन सी पार्टी को वोट देता है. आप अपलॉड करते हैं, आप पीवी सिंधु के बारे में ऐसा नहीं सोचते हैं। जो भी देश को अपलॉड करता है आप उसके बारे में खुश होते हैं।
पर अभी ऐसा इट्स बिकम लाइक दिस, ये अपनी तरफ का है, ये उनकी तरफ का है। लेट मी आस्क यू दिस
ऑल्सो बिकॉज देयर इज अ सोशल मीडिया देयर। पहले पता नहीं लगता था, अब सोशल मीडिया पे पीपल पुट इट ऑन सोशल मीडिया की अगर किसी ने अच्छाई की किसी चीज़ की तो दूसरा बुराई करता है तो क्लियर हो जाता है। इंटरव्यू के बाद लोग कहेंगे लो फिर शुरू हो गया ये राग अलापना।
बट कल भी किसी ने सोशल मीडिया का प्रयोग किया, ट्वीट किया, फिर डिलीट किया।
It was very sad. I felt sad because I know her. Whatever time I have met, she's a nice person and a fairly good actress. There was no need for her to do that. Who are the people you are wanting the brownies from? मतलब किसके लिए? You can't say that मेरा सनक गई थी तो मैंने कुछ गलती से लिख दिया, ऐसा नहीं है। और वो भी उस तरह के लोग जहाँ पर लोगों ने 20 जवानों ने अपनी जान दी है देश की सीमा की सुरक्षा करने के लिए। लेफ्टिनेंट कर्नल संतोष के बारे में मतलब
संतोष बाबू जी, हाँ।
संतोष बाबू उनके साथ वो क्या हम उसका अंदाज़ा भी नहीं लगा सकते कि उस बर्फ़ में वो कैसे उन चाइनीज़ लोगों के साथ लड़े होंगे और कैसे उन्होंने किस लिए लड़ रहे थे। वो हमारे लिए, जिसने ट्वीट किया है उसके लिए, उसके परिवार के लिए वो लड़ रहे थे। उनको क्या मिला? ये that was, I think it was in extreme bad taste, and that's all why I want to say that, because I think this is unpardonable, this is unfortunate, and you can't do this, and no Indian has the right to sort of be so insensitive towards people who safeguard our interest. They are there because we can sleep peacefully.
आपके रूट्स कश्मीरी हैं, आप भले ही पले बड़े हिमाचल में थे, तो जब कभी रक्षा मंत्री कहते हैं कि हम पीओके को वापस लेने की क्षमता रखते हैं, पार्लियामेंट ने डिसाइड किया इट इज आवर ओन लैंड, सॉवरेन टेरिटरी, एंड आर्मी चीफ सेज ऑर्डर मिलेगा तो हम ले आएंगे, इज इट अ पॉलिटिकल स्टेटमेंट अनुपम जी, और इज इट द स्टेटमेंट ऑफ अ फौजी हु सेज ऑर्डर दो हम करके दिखाएंगे?
इट्स अ स्टेटमेंट ऑफ द फौजी। ये फौजी ही बोल सकते हैं ना, ये कोई पॉलिटिकल पार्टी का कोई बोलता तो अलग बात लगती। बट फौजी इज ऑल्सो वर्किंग अंडर रक्षा मंत्रालय। देयर इज ए सिस्टम, देयर इज ए कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन, देयर इज संविधान, जो एक प्रोसेस है कि भाई हम वो मुझे याद है हकीकत फिल्म लगी थी बहुत साल पहले, मुझे वो डायलॉग कभी भूलता नहीं है कि दुश्मन 10-25 फुट की दूरी पर है तो पीछे आवाज़ आती नो फायरिंग, सर दुश्मन 15 फुट की दूरी पर है नो फायरिंग। तो देर इज एन ऑलवेज ए सीनियरिटी लेवल, देयर इज ए लेफ्टिनेंट, देयर इज ए कैप्टन, देन मेजर, लेफ्टिनेंट कर्नल, ब्रिगेडियर। तो ये सब ये जो पद्धति है ये तो चलती है ना, आम जिंदगी में भी चलती है, आपके स्टूडियो में भी चलती है, हमारे भी चलती है। किसी ये सीनियर आदमी है, डायरेक्टर बोलता है एक्शन तो एक्टर स्टार्ट होता है जी। तो ये तो दुनिया का दस्तूर है, ये तो हमारे जहाँ भी काम होता है वहाँ होता है। तो फौजी तो इस तरह की फौजी, हम एनडीए में जवान तैयार होते हैं, उनको 24 घंटे यही सिखाया जाता है कि देश सबसे बड़ा है। 19 साल के बच्चे, 20 साल के बच्चे, एक विकास मनहास करके एक ट्विटर पे हैं, मुझे उनका पता नहीं था, मैं उनको फॉलो करना शुरू किया। वो हर फौजी के घर में जाते हैं जिसने अपना कोई खोया है। सो आई थिंक उनको पता भी नहीं था मैं उनको फॉलो कर रहा था, तो एक दिन मैंने उनको डायरेक्ट मैसेज भेजा, मैंने कहा तुम कमाल का काम कर रहे हो। सो ये समझना बहुत ज़रूरी है कि फौजी जो है उसका एक ही मकसद है ये, और जिस दिन सेम मकसद जनता का बन जाएगा तो हमसे बड़ा राष्ट्र कोई होगा ही नहीं, जो है भी अभी भी है। कुछ लोग हम कोट पे लगा के घूमते हैं, कुछ लोग दिल में लगा के घूमते हैं।
When you stated your position and when you were very clear where you stand, did they try to cancel you out, the industry members? Somebody said suddenly,
I don't want to give them a
and
power.
your project's doing well. Is it a message to them saying, अब हटा के देखो?
नहीं, मुझे लगता है कि देखिए जिस बैकग्राउंड से मैं आया हूँ, मेरा कोई नहीं था, मैं अपने बलबूते पे खड़ा हूँ। ऑफ कोर्स आई एम थैंकफुल टू ऑल द प्रोड्यूसर्स, डायरेक्टर्स, ऑडियंसेस, टेक्नीशियंस हु हैव हेल्प्ड मी रीच अ स्टेज वेयर इन 38 years आई हैव डन 532 फिल्म, पद्म भूषण, पद्म श्री, फिल्म फेयर अवार्ड्स, नेशनल अवार्ड्स, whatever you want to say, Dalai Lama awards for my work. But so But I am a self-made person. Self-made person का अपना एक अहंकार होता है कि यार मैं अपने बलबूते पे खड़ा हूँ.
जी.
आप उसको अहंकार बोलिए या उसको सेल्फ कॉन्फिडेंस बोलिए, मगर मैं उनको इस आई डोंट वांट टू गिव देम द जॉय दैट हाँ मैं घबरा गया था. ऑफ कोर्स देयर इज अ पॉसिबिलिटी दैट इट डिड हैपन. आई एम श्योर देयर वाज.
मैं ये नहीं पूछ रहा हूँ, आई एम नॉट सेइंग दैट यू गॉट worried or rattled by it, but did you realize that they tried to cancel you?
Of course, I'm a smart guy. I'm an intelligent guy. I of course it happened, but जोश होना चाहिए लाइफ में, और भगवान शरीर ठीक रखना चाहिए और मानसिक अवस्था ठीक रहनी चाहिए, तो आप कोई भी हर्डल गुजारा कर सकते हैं. इनफैक्ट समटाइम व्हेन देयर आर डिफिकल्टीज पुट इन योर पाथ, आई बिकम स्ट्रॉन्गर. And this is a message for all those people who come back from all kinds of backgrounds, who come back from small towns to make it big. Don't ever give up, and don't let anybody frighten you. Nobody. ऊपर वाले से डरो और अपने आप से डरो, अपने बेवकूफाना अंदाज से डरो. But otherwise, sky is not the limit. You can go higher than that.
Higher than that. I think that message is for us as a country also.
And of course.
It just is. Do you believe we are on the cusp of that? Do you believe that we are, as a nation, I'm purely going back by how people have responded to your projects. They've responded to certain movies, and also in society how they are. Do you believe there is a churn that's happening?
There is. Look at a film like Kantara. Means amazing. क्या बात है. आज वो हिंदी फिल्म, उसका जो हिंदी वर्जन है, जो शुरुआत पता नहीं कितने पैसों से हुआ था, वो 83 करोड़ पहुंच चुकी है. आई थिंक इन अनदर 2 weeks इट विल डू 100 करोड़. हिंदी वर्जन. नोबडी नोज. इट्स अ कन्नड़ा फिल्म. नोबडी नोज हु इज दिस पर्सन, बट इट इज द ट्रूथ. इट हैज हैपेंड, और देश भी उसी कगार पर है. हमारी ताकत यही है, बस ऐसा ही रहना चाहिए, ऐसा ही रहेगा.
A lot of your years, your karma kshetra has been Mumbai. We are also on the cusp of 14 years of the 26/11 Mumbai attacks. What are your thoughts 14 years down the line? Do you still remember what happened on 26th of November?
Yeah, I did a film called Hotel Mumbai based on it. I played the chef.
Yes.
It was horrifying. I remember I was in Mumbai. I was shooting in Mad Island, and this is when they started it was a gang war or something like that. Sometimes I think that maybe it was a dream, but it's a reality. It's a reality when you go to Taj and you see that now, you see the memorial and you see everything. It did happen. It should have never happened. And sometimes I feel that the thought behind it is the conspiracy theories are frightening. The fact that Kasab was wearing something
Kalava.
like this, Kalava, is frightening. And
They wanted to portray it as a Hindu terror, Bhagwa terror.
Can you imagine? People were writing books, already books were written, and there was inauguration of those books. विमोचन हो रहा था. तो कितने विशिष्ट लोग हैं हमारी कंट्री में. But it should never happen. There's something like this should have never happened. Because problem क्या है कि हम मौत को statistics बना देते हैं कि कितने लोग मरे. अब तो हम इतने insensitive हो गए हैं कभी-कभी कि हमें लगता है कि अखबार में या किसी जगह या न्यूज़ पोर्टल पे पढ़ा कि 5 मरे थे, अच्छा चलो ठीक है. 50 मरे थे, अच्छा ठीक है. पर जो भी मरा है वो किसी का बेटा या किसी की बेटी या किसी का हस्बैंड, किसी की वाइफ, माँ बाप, उनकी तो पूरी ज़िंदगी ख़त्म हो गई ना. सो आई थिंक माई ट्रिब्यूट टू देम एंड माई pranam to them, and may God give them strength to sort of deal with this loss.
But do you believe as a country, and even as a person, our attitude should be that don't mess with me? Not because
it is the attitude today.
Don't mess. I don't want to mess with you, but you don't mess with me.
Correct.
Is that a right attitude?
Absolutely.
Do you think that should be our posture as a country?
Absolutely.
कि पंगा नहीं लेना.
Absolutely. With all due respect to गांधी जी, आप एक गाल पे थप्पड़ खाओ और दूसरा गाल सामने कर दो, वो ज़माने नहीं रहे. वो तब तो भूख हड़ताल करने से और जो, and we are thankful, the nation is thankful to all those people who sort of, but nation is thankful to Bhagat Singh also. Nation is thankful to Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose also. So it's a mixture of various kinds of people who got us our independence. Now it's time for us to say that हमारे साथ पंगा मत लो.
Your projects, forthcoming projects, are you going to work towards influencing this story of Bharat going forward, or are you just going to take each project as it comes?
You see, there are two things. One is an actor in me, and one is a person in me. The person in me will always be loyal to the country, will always speak whenever there is a possibility. That doesn't mean that if there is something to criticize, I will not. Self-reflection is very, very important. The actor in me is my job to do whatever comes to me. I will not deliberately want to take something which does not agree with me. Okay, but my projects are very unusual. My next release is a horror film called Connect. It's a Tamil film.
Wow. So
Yeah.
getting into language domain also.
Yeah, and the teaser of that film has really garnered lot of attention. Nayantara is in that. Then I have done a film called IB-71. There was a very interesting case that had happened where Sankalp Reddy is the director and Vidyut Jamwal is the fascinating. I play the IB chief in that 71. There was I don't want to talk about the plot. Then there is Kagas 2, which is Satish Kaushik's film. He's produced it. Then there is Emergency, Kangana Ranaut's film, where I play Lokmanya Apna. This is my first attack of Alzheimer's. I play. How wonderful! We'll come to the next film. How can I forget what I play? This is a television moment. इधर freeze हो. यहाँ पहली बार अनुपम खेर की याददाश्त चली गई थी.
तो आप वो सारे सब्जेक्ट्स कर रहे हैं कहीं ना कहीं.
Because cinema has changed.
जिन पर बात करने की आवश्यकता है.
Because cinema has changed और ये churning हुई है. देखिए, हम किसी की फिल्में नहीं चली इस पर खुशी नहीं मना सकते हैं आप. किसी की फिल्में जो हैं वो हर इंसान मेहनत करके फिल्म बनाता है ताकि वो चले. But sometimes also what has happened in the last 2 years, कोविड की वजह से, लॉकडाउन की वजह से लोगों में बहुत चेंजेस आए हैं. उनकी ज़िंदगी में बहुत उथल पुथल हुई है. और फिर उन्होंने उस दौरान वर्ल्ड सिनेमा, तेलुगु सिनेमा, तमिल सिनेमा, मलयालम सिनेमा देखा. अब वो कहते हैं बताओ हमें क्या बनाया है. एंड इफ इट इज़ ट्रूथफुली सेड, whether it's an entertaining film or whether it's a different kind of film, it touches their heart.
आपने कोविड काल की बात की, but that was also a personally testing time for you because of Kiranji's illness.
Yes.
And you were also industry, work, everything came together. How did you deal with it? And did it also change your perspective towards life? I'm very glad she fought through it, and it's kudos to
You
her.
see an element of fear, and you feel weak, you feel... but then I realized the person who is going through is more vulnerable than the people around her. The only thing we can do is to give the person all your attention, all your warmth, all your... because she was the one who was in the hospital. She was the one who was getting chemotherapy done. But her courage was very infectious, and that's what families are all about. You have to get together and sort of say, we'll fight it together. And by the grace of God, I think cancer is in remission, and she's in full form, working back in Chandigarh and dealing with it. The way she sometimes shouts at me on the phone, and always realize that she's fine now.
But is that what made you also turn to the gym and start
No,
flexing your muscle?
I went to the gym 7 years back. When I turned 60, I discovered that I need to do different things. I need to reinvent myself. And how do I do that? Because reinvention can be in your mind also. Correct. But how does it turn into a body? Only by looking at being different. So that's the first time in my life I hit the gym. I became conscious of what I'm eating. I started walking, I ran, etc. And then I started enjoying.
एक आदत हमें भी हो गई है कि आपके सोशल मीडिया पोस्ट पे हम दुलारी जी को जरूर देखें.
Dulari ji is much more popular than I am. And she does not know that. She does not know that.
She's just so genuine.
Yeah.
There's no fakery
I
there.
think all
That's what I think
moms
makes her
are
so
genuine. She is not aware of the camera. And all walks of life people, not only in India, abroad. Once ambassador met me of Fiji, I think, and he said, "आपकी माता जी तो कमाल की हैं, क्या अच्छे." और मेरी माता बोलती रहती है, क्या मेरे पीछे मंदिर में फोटो खिंचाने आते हैं, मास्क में भी पहचानते हैं, अभी तूने क्या किया हुआ है ये. But I think it has also given, even though a small percentage of people, it's also given them a relook at their parents. You see what Unchai has done.
Yeah.
Unchai has made you believe that हमारे जो parents हैं या जो हमसे जो 60 से 65 के ऊपर हैं, they are not redundant. There is something amazing about them. They are, in fact, their knowledge can be used. Jayaprakash Narayan was the person I portrayed in Emergency. So how could I sort of say Jayaprakash Narayan? दिमाग में चल रहा था Jayaprakash Narayan ji. And I think that's a fascinating film. I'm coming back to that. Because I think Kangana ने बहुत अच्छी फिल्म बनाई है, मतलब जितनी मैंने शूटिंग की है. So my mom is a representative of that courage that people should show towards their parents. आपके घर में अगर कोई इतनी उम्र का तो है, तो इसका मतलब इतने तजुर्बे का भी है. उस तजुर्बे का हमें फ़ायदा उठाना चाहिए, बजाय ये सोचने के कि अरे ये लाइबिलिटी हैं. मेरे फादर जो थे, he passed away in 2012, मेरे दोस्तों को साफ इंस्ट्रक्शंस थी, my father may repeat the same joke which he has been repeating for 20 years, but you have to laugh loudly.
कई लोग कहते हैं कि हम अपने माँ बाप ने जो हमें नहीं सिखाया वो अपने बच्चों को सिखाना चाहते हैं, बट उस प्रोसेस में वो सिखाना भूल जाते हैं जो उन्होंने हमें सिखाया.
इसकी बड़ी अच्छी कहा, मैं अंग्रेजी में I'll try and remember that. In order to give our children what our parents gave us, we do not give them what our something ऐसा. ये बड़ी अच्छी.
हाँ, in order to give our children what our parents did give us, we forget to give them what they actually give us. So that's where it is. My final question, and based on experience, 26th November is also our Constitution Day, Samvidhan. And 73 years, 26th November 1949, it was adopted, and formally on the 26th of January 1950. Do you think our Samvidhan, the way it is, after 105 amendments and changes to it over the years, really represents Bharat? क्या हमारी संस्कृति से ये संविधान बना है? Or do you think all of us collectively as a country need to review it and see how it will define us going forward?
I'm not an authority on something like this, so I will not be able to speak like that. But I think संस्कृति से ही संविधान बनता है, मुझे ऐसा लगता है. और संविधान में संशोधन जो है बार बार होते रहना चाहिए, बिकॉज हम जो 10 साल पहले थे, हिंदुस्तान या पूरा दुनिया जो है 10 साल में जो इतना बदला है, जैसे कहते हैं ना कि वो जो आईफोन है वो तो 14 वर्जन तो आ ही चुके हैं उसके, तो सोसाइटी कितनी बदली है, कितना हमारा बदला है पूरा जो रहन सहन आदतें, तो वो उनको इनकॉर्पोरेट करके, ताकि वी शुड कीप रिविजिटिंग इट. दैट ऑल्सो रिमाइंड्स मी दैट द सिनेमा एक्ट 1952 का भी बदलना चाहिए, वो भी नहीं बदला है. वो बहुत सारी चीज़ें हैं जो अभी भी अंग्रेज़ों की पद्धति पे चली जा रही हैं. तो अभी हिंदुस्तान एक बिल्कुल पूरी तरह से 75वें साल में पूरी तरह से आज़ाद है, तो ये सब चीज़ें थोड़ी सी संशोधन करके बदलनी चाहिए.
तो संविधान में संशोधन की ज़रूरत है, लेजिस्लेशंस रूल्स में ज़रूरत है, सिनेमा एक्ट की आपने बात की, चलिए आप ही इस पर पहल कीजिए. बट फिलहाल 500 करोड़ के आपको बहुत बहुत शुभकामनाएं. ऐसे इंटरव्यूज हर साल हम आपके साथ करें.
अरे वाह वाह,
थैंक यू सो मच अनुपम जी. ऑलवेज अ प्लेजर.
ऑलवेज अ प्लेजर.
Almost 30 lakh rupees was spent on each classroom, and then even toilets were shown as the classroom. So it's a scam of the kind, and probably the model which they were presenting to the country, saying that we are the best education model. If this is the best education model, then God bless Delhi and God bless the country wherever they go and contest election. So obviously there need to be a complete vigilance inquiry into it and detailed inquiry into the complete subject. The initial report indicates that yes, there's a scam in it, and we are hopeful that LG will soon recommend the detailed inquiry into it, and then all those who are involved into it, and whether it's Mr. Sisodia or anyone else, they will be convicted and then will be held responsible.
The Directorate of Vigilance of the Delhi government has finalized and submitted its report to the Chief Secretary in the matter of grave irregularities and corruption by the Arvind Kejriwal government in the construction of 2,405 classrooms in 193 schools. The DOV report underlines towards a major scam and has recommended a detailed investigation by a specialized agency. The Vigilance Department has also recommended fixing the responsibilities of the concerned officials of the Education Department and the PWD who were involved in the bungling to the tune of nearly 1,300 crore rupees. It has also recommended to forward its findings along with the replies of the PWD and Education Department to the CVC for consideration. I'm crossing over to our senior editor Pallavi Ghosh to get us more. Pallavi, how is this going to impact the AAP? Tell us more.
Well, I mean, as you pointed out, these are very glaring accusations and allegations against the Delhi government. And, their flagship program of education is something which has always been projected by the Delhi government and the chief minister as being the main reason why people are supporting the Aam Aadmi Party. You pointed out, but there's one more point which is there in the vigilance report, and that also talks about how private entities, and they take a name of one specifically of Babbar and Babbar Associates, saying that these private entities have been given contracts in the running of the administration. Remember, it's pretty much a similar allegation which was done as far as the excise policy scam was concerned. Over there too, the allegation was that private entities perceived to be close to a Delhi government, the ones who were running it, and they were the beneficiaries. How does it play out on the ground? Well, we are seeing the MCD elections. In the MCD elections, education, health, mohalla clinics, the schools run by the Delhi government, all of that is under the scanner by the BJP. The BJP's allegation is that this is a scam. They're unsubstantiated achievements which the Delhi government is talking about. So I think with this latest revelation, where the Vigilance Committee has forwarded a report to a chief secretary, the chief secretary is expected to get responses and then file the response back to the Vigilance Committee, and then it goes on from there, will be something which is going to lead to another fresh round of allegations, counter allegations between the BJP and the Aam Aadmi Party.
Now, Pallavi, how do you think the AAP is going to be responding to this? Because these are massive findings that comes in line with the BJP's allegation of a classroom scam.
Well, I mean, the Delhi Chief Minister has gone on record to say that how the central investigative agencies, whether it's ED, CBI, the Vigilance Committee, all of them are being misused by the BJP because they want to hit out politically at the Aam Aadmi Party. I don't think the AAP government is going to take these kind of allegations very seriously. They're going to say, there you go. Those allegations are absolutely unsubstantiated. And if you have the investigative agencies in your hand, then of course you target your political opponents. And they've been deciding to brazen it out, really, Aisha. We saw it in the case of Satyendra Jain. There's no question of resignation. They're brazenly supporting Satyendra Jain. So I think the AAP strategy is to dig their heels in.
Absolutely. Pallavi, I do want you to stay with us. We are being joined by Mr. Harish Khurana of the BJP. Mr. Khurana, thank you so much for speaking to CNN News 18. The big breaking development, the report has now been released about the classroom scam. There are very significant and scathing findings. What is your first reaction to this?
See, from the day one, BJP was alleging that there's a huge scam in the classroom, in the school scam. Now today, the Director of Vigilance has also confirmed that and recommended the fixing of the responsibility of the concerned officials of the Education Department and the PWD Department also. I mean, the amount is around about 1,300 crore rupees. What we feel, BJP feel is, the amount is much, much bigger because in this case, the vigilance report which has come in is around about only 2,000 odd classroom what we are talking about. But the actual construction of the rooms are there, about 21,000 rooms which Aam Aadmi Party was claiming. So if you see the quantum of the scam, it's much, much higher what BJP is alleging, and we have the proof of that. I mean, the role of Babbar and Babbar Company, the role of the people, the contractors which have been given the contracts, these has to be investigated thoroughly. And I think the actual kingpin of this whole scam is Arvind Kejriwal and Satyendra Jain and Manish Sisodia.
Mr. Khurana, I would also like you to elaborate on how your party really found out that these irregularities were taking place, because you had first raised these allegations in August, if I'm not wrong.
See, first of all, this whole scam was started when the agency was being hired for constructing or giving the design and everything with the Babbar and Babbar Associates. They have been given a contract without any tender. I mean, without allegation, he's a private person and.
Namaste, Jai Hind, and thank you for staying with us here as we try to get the perspective on our Samvidhan. We're building up to the Constitution Day, and this is the Constitution series here on the Right Stand, and of course, trying to get the perspective on this beautiful effort by our founding fathers and mothers, that is our Samvidhan, which was adopted on the 26th of November 1949, came into force from the 26th of January 1950. So 73 saal, more than 7 decades, ladies and gentlemen. What does this Samvidhan today represent? Does this represent the ethos of Bharat as it was supposed to be? I'm just going to open up some of the pages and tell you why. See this page right here at the top, page number 6, when we talk about the fundamental rights, it is Ram, Lakshman and Sita, which our calligrapher Raizada Saab has put here. Then if we go further, page number 17, there is a representation of Krishna and Arjuna, where they are when they are talking about the directive principles. So with each aspect comes, like I said, see, the directive principle is representative of the Gitopadesha. So the idea is to get perspective on how Indian is our constitution. Is our constitution really working for every citizen of Bharat? And the various perspectives. So today it's journalists who are joining us, senior people, columnists, journalists, thinkers, and those who are also trying to work towards the Bharat worldview and to try and help Bharatiya rediscover themselves. So Arun Anand, the first post, is with us. We have Nupur Sharma of Op India, Rajagopalanji, and of course Madhav Nalapadji. Madhavji, namaste. Thank you very, very much. So it would have been wonderful had you been able to join us in studio, but it's great that you're joining us. So let me start from without and then bring it into the studio. So let me ask you, how Indian or how Bharatiya is our constitution?
Anand, I'd like to say that I feel very comfortable as an Indian, as a lifelong citizen of India with our constitution. And may I remind you that before freedom, we didn't have any such constitution. We had regulations set by an external power without any consultation or frankly any necessity of looking into the needs of the people. The constitution is a document for the free people. Regulations that were there during the British Raj were meant for a slave people. The point is, we promulgated the constitution, but we retained a lot of the regulations. So that is a problem. And many of the problems that we are witnessing today that we frankly inaccurately blame on the constitution can be linked to the fact that we adopted a new constitution for a free people in a free republic, but retained many of the regulations and many of the regulatory systems of the British Raj.
So it's the rules and the regulations. There's a petition in the Honorable Supreme Court demanding 222 laws which are archaic, some dating back to 1893, which need to be changed, which need to be Indianized. So Arun Anand, do you agree, disagree with Madhavji that it's not the constitution or how it was drafted in 26 November 1949, but the rules around it, our framework of regulations? Does it stop there, or would you want to blame how the executive and the judiciary interpreted it, altered it, changed the face of it over the years?
Anand, I have a different take on this. I would say that, I neither agree nor disagree with Mr. Nalapad. I think when you have the constitution was framed, in between 1947 to 1950. So that was a different era and the challenges were different. So you have to see, a constitution in that context also. And then there have been so many amendments in that. And I would also say that I think the soul of this constitution is pretty Bharatiya. And the way it has been interpreted, now like you had Article 370.
Correct.
So it was a temporary provision, but you made it kind of basically almost permanent until it was removed by this government. Similarly, you had Article 356. So it has been basically used properly also, but most of the time it has been misused. So I would say that you might have the best constitution in the world, but people who are going to implement it. So it depends on them basically how they interpret it.
Do you believe that brute force majority also forcibly altered the even soul of our constitution when changes were made to its preamble, Nupur Sharma? Did that alter the entire ethos fundamentals of our constitution itself? 104 amendments plus which have happened.
I think the soul of the constitution itself was looking at the West to civilize the uncivilized barbarians, which are Hindus. And the first amendment itself actually set the tone of trying to silence a victimized majority and trying to uphold the rights of an intolerant minority. Now, the first amendment, which restricted our freedom of speech, came from a battle between Nehru and RSS, where the RSS and organizer were criticizing Nehru's Nehru Liaquat Pact, and they were criticizing the fact that he wanted to have restrictions on the influx of Hindu refugees from East Pakistan and Pakistan who were being brutalized, murdered and raped. And he wanted to suppress freedom of expression, so people who were speaking up for the rights of persecuted Hindus after a brutal partition based on religion did not happen. The full population exchange did not happen because of the Nehru Liaquat Pact. So the very soul of the constitution was changed the moment our lawmakers and our founding fathers, so to speak, of the modern nation state, because Bharat as an entity is much older than a new nation state, political state that we formed. It started getting altered the moment it was used as a tool to suppress the voice of a victimized majority and take a knee to an intolerant minority. And it started when you started drawing on these laws that the colonial masters implemented, 295A for example. It was a result of the intolerant minority going on a rampage and killing Mahashay Rajpal after Rangila Rasool was printed as a response to the Muslim community printing 2 booklets which insulted Hindus. So the Hindus did not get their rights, but 295A was implemented to preserve the sentiments of an intolerant minority who are, by the way, very easy to piss off. So I think the constitution has always been a tool to suppress the majority, a victimized majority, and to victimize them further. We don't have a right to our own temples. We don't have a right to run our own education institutions. RTE gives them the right to run minority institutions.
But is that a product of the constitution, or is it the byproduct of regulations that have been formed, as Madhavji was saying? So is it the constitution to follow? Because constitution doesn't define minority per se as to who's minority. It does give the ambit and gives the freedom for each region, each state to define minority,
but let's look at this.
Based on linguistic, cultural aspects. So did some people, the narrative allow one particular group of people to appropriate this word minority when they are actually the second largest majority?
Why did Nehru and Ambedkar did not want the word secular inserted in the constitution when it was being drafted? Because they knew that the constitution was not secular to begin with. You had laws that altered the religious practices of Hindus, that had limits on the practice of freedom of religion. You had reservation for so-called lower caste people. You had reservation for Anglo-Indians. It was not a secular constitution. What they wanted was a constitution that gives them the right to suppress the majority. Because in the Constituent Assembly debates, the Muslim lawmakers stood up and said that we cannot have any restrictions on the personal laws of Muslims. And there were no restrictions on the personal laws of Muslims in the constitution.
But one of the directive principles was common civil code, Rajgopalanji. So then is the constitution itself dichotomous in its spirit? Was it not secular at all? So then insertion of this word, debasing. So was it all politics by the executive, judiciary thereafter that corrupted the soul of the constitution?
You touched the nerve point, Anand. You touched the nerve point. Nupur explained it very nicely, and Madhav sir also. My understanding is Congress meddled with that. 3 Gandhis, Indira Gandhi, Rajiv Gandhi, Sonia Gandhi. They wanted to finish this constitution. That is why now we are in a new era altogether. What Nupur spoke of for past, what Anand said or past. What I want to emphasize is it needs a revisit. Because we are in a digitalized world, we are in G20, we are not in G7, we are in G20 era, and we are in Narendra Modi era. That is why Mohan Bhagwat is repeatedly saying Hindu Rashtra. As you explained just now, the original I have seen in Parliament Centre Hall, Anand, you would have also seen that. It contains the real picture of Ram and Krishna, Gautam Buddha, etc. Why should Congress remove that and go for one particular narration? So my understanding is the Constitution of India needs a revisit. What Mr. Atal Bihari Vajpayee tried through E.S. Venkatachalaya. Now after 2024, the hat trick of Narendra Modi, you take it from me, after UCC, Uniform Civil Code, the government of India in 2025 will revisit the Constitution because it needs a revisit. 50 years enough. We had it. So we need to go by the younger generation's aspirations. We should not be taken, for example, in temples in Tamil Nadu, as Nupur said. Temples of Tamil Nadu are under one control. Why? Why other religions are not under control? Hindu Religious Endowment Board, who brought the regulation? It is not in the Constitution. Anantasayanam Iyengar did not speak on that. 72 of that page, you go through that. I went through that. And in that, they never said it. Anantasayanam Iyengar's one. So therefore, you have to have it.
Do you believe that this Constitution needs a review or revisit? Or the way the Constitution is being interpreted, appropriated, bulldozed, or twisted, that needs to be corrected? Where do you stand? Because if the Constitution provides us right to equality, then is there really right to equality when it comes to certain sections of the country whose religious institutions are controlled by state while others have the freedom? Is it right to equality where in 9 states the minority don't have their rights or rules directed towards them? Linguistic minorities don't have the rights and the quotas that should be given to them as is defined here. Is it right to equality when this country in its directive principles said that we need to have a common civil code, but that's never had?
Look, the fact is, Anand, the Constitution is not a marble figurine. The Constitution is a living document. In that sense, can be compared to a living individual. And a living individual needs change. I quite agree with Sri Rajgopal when he said that after Narendra Modi became Prime Minister, the country has really embarked on a new era. May I point out that if you look at the speeches of key leaders of the Congress party, including Nehru, pre-partition, pre-1947, they are very clear. No question of a Muslim party or a Hindu party, or no question of pandering to Muslim sentiment or Hindu sentiment. Everybody is equal. Very, very, if I may say so, very much in favor of that. And then what happened? Partition happened. Partition was supposed to avoid bloodshed. Instead, partition became the trigger for the worst bloodshed that we have seen in the history of India. And till today, the wounds of partition have not been addressed. I have been saying this for the last maybe 30 years, that Kashi, Mathura and Ayodhya, these are the 3 important, if I may say so, religious sites of the Hindus. They are the Makkah, the Medina, the Al-Aqsa of the Hindus. Why? Because they are the birthplace of Lord Ram, Lord Krishna, and the manifestation of Shakti in the form of Kashi. So from that point of view, of all the 43,000, 41,000, whatever, only these 3, I had said, if you don't bring them back to the pre-Aurangzeb period, you are going to continue a deep wound in the Hindu psyche. The problem with the Congress leadership, after partition, after independence, they started doing things which, if they had done before partition, they probably, they could not have avoided the partition. It was a British and Muslim League Jinnah project. But these things made no sense in a country that was partitioned on the basis of religion.
I was speaking with Jai Sai Deepak and Vishnu Shankar Jain. They quoted Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, who said that the Muslims have come out and made a representation that they are evolved, they are reformed. And that, they are educated. So that's one representation. But when it came to actual reforms, they said we are not ready for reforms because the society has not yet evolved. In our case, minority is supposed to be defined based on the region, and on language, culture, etc., and representation of a particular state. Each state has the right to define who's a minority, who's not. So then the National Commission for Minorities that came into force in 2006 is a fraud. on the Constitution. So how are we allowing fraud on the Constitution? 370, Arunji said, fraud on the Constitution. So are we just keeping the Constitution as a living document and using it or appropriating it as convenient rather than doing justice to these 344 pages?
Look, firstly, I think the concept of minority itself that we have come up with in the Constitution is quite Abrahamic. Because Sanatan Dharma does not discriminate in terms of linguistic minorities, religious minorities, etc. There is no discrimination per se. So it's a very Abrahamic concept. So we believe that there will be discrimination and persecution of minorities just as there is and was in societies which are dominated by Islam, like Pakistan, Bangladesh, Afghanistan, etc. So that premise itself is a little problematic, where we say that we need a special commission for minorities because Hindus might persecute their minorities just like Pakistan and Bangladesh persecute their minorities. That is dichotomous in itself because that's an Abrahamic concept. We don't have that. Secondly, we will not be able to treat the Constitution as a living document and be fair to it unless we understand that our idea of religious pluralism is very different from the Abrahamic idea of religious pluralism, because religious pluralism essentially requires every religion to concede that there is a grain of truth in every other religion. Right? All Indic religions are willing to do that.
Yes.
Not just Hinduism. All Indic religions are willing to say that there is a grain of truth in every path that every religion prescribes. Is Islam willing to do that? Is Islam willing to say that yes, Hinduism has a grain of salt, Sanatan Dharma has a grain of salt? No, it isn't. Because it is an Abrahamic thought, it says that my God is the only God, my way is the only way, my way of life and my law is the only law. And therefore, you can't have a constitution based on religious pluralism when you're dealing with religions that are not plural.
So should we write it as, or should we say that the cultural ethos or the dharma of Bharat is Hindu in its ethos, and the dharma defines that it will be equal for all. The Constitution will look at each person as an equal, and that's why we will have to then rethink how we are going to define whether should we have a majority or a minority, or should the Constitution just look at haves and have-nots. Then we'll have to then go back and see whether we should have reservations. We should also go and see how we've treated linguistic minorities and have we really done justice, our polity, our judiciary, when it interprets the Constitution. Because what happens is between Article 14 to Article 26, the dance is phenomenal in terms of twisting the narrative in courts when the arguments are made. And often judges are also confused. There are courts which believe that personal law is above a common code. And then there are courts like the Karnataka High Court and the Kerala Court which says that an act like POXO supersedes a personal law. So then you can't have our courts confused. Arunji.
See, I think it's in the true spirit of, what you said, Anand. There are multiple interpretations and there are, multiple truths. The Sanatan Dharma philosophy is basically about, whenever all the efforts are, the difference between the Western framework and the Eastern framework or the Indian framework or Bharatiya framework, I would say, is that all of us try to reach nearer the truth, whereas the Western framework basically it talks in terms of binaries and it talks in terms of, the weaker and the stronger. And also, I want to clear one more thing, though I'm not a spokesperson of RSS. Mr. Mohan Bhagwat, the Sarsang Chalak, has never said, that, or he has never indicated that we want to have a new constitution of Hindu Rashtra. He has always said that this constitution is supreme and the soul of this constitution is Bharatiya. So we also have to, and then we don't have to form Hindu Rashtra. The Hindu Rashtra exists. So you only have to basically realize it, and he has also said, 4 years back in a conference in Vigyan Bhavan that if some people have problem with the word Hindu, no problem. You can say Bharatiya, you can say Sanatani. Whatever word you want to take, the spirit has to be there. See, practically it is difficult to treat everybody with the same, in the same category. Because like you have scheduled castes, they have suffered, and scheduled tribes, they have suffered immense injustice in the past. So there has to be, they have to be treated differently, they have to be given, reservation. So you cannot say, that all of them will be, treated in the same manner. At one level, it's a heterogeneous society. And so I would say that, there is a fundamental challenge with this constitution because a significant part of it has come out of the Government of India Act, 1935.
Yeah.
So that part basically is actually creating, more of a
More of
trouble.
a hassle.
So there has been some balancing by bringing in, a lot of Bharatiya things in that. For example, you have, cow protection. We have talked about that in the directive principles. So I would say, it's a continuously evolving process. I think it's a great document. It's a great work of, which our founding fathers of the constitution have done. The only thing, it's upon us that how we take it forward. One last thing which you said, it will always be confusing. There is a saying, if you're not confused, you're not knowledgeable.
Knowledgeable, correct.
So it will always be confusing. Different courts have interpreted in a different manner. So, but overall, as a society, I think this constitution has ensured that democracy has prevailed in this country.
See, interestingly, the original constitution which I have, ladies and gentlemen, it is 221 pages, and after that it's the 8th schedule followed by 8 pages of signatures of all the members who are present. Now, the 8th schedule, Articles 344(1) and 351 talks about the languages, and there are 14 languages. Please, I'm just going to show it here. And in these 14 languages, there is no English. There is no English. But there is Kashmiri, there is Sanskrit. What have we done? If the constitution protects these languages as per the 8th schedule, Sanskritam linguistic minorities, Kashmiri linguistic minorities, where are they? The last language is Urdu, the first language is Assamese, they put it in alphabetical order, but there is Kashmiri and there is Sanskrit, part of the 8th schedule. Have they been actually protected? Have we really worked towards protecting what is enshrined in our constitution?
That has not been protected, Anand, because Sanskrit was some sort of an allergy to Congress. The reason being, as Nupur and Anand was explaining, I don't want to get into that. I need a rejig of this because we are into a LGBT era, which constitution did not speak of. You talked about India, you talked about secularism. Secularism was brought in by Madam Indira Gandhi to kill culture. I strongly argue that because today, as you see, Kashi Tamil Sangamam, why Narendra Modi taking 2,000 people from Tamil Nadu to Kashi celebrate the culture? Why Pukan, the Assam government of Assam is celebrating tomorrow Pukan's 400th birthday? Why?
Lachit Bar Pukan.
Pukan, that is a very simply word, Pukan.
Yeah.
The Pukan is very common, a home culture. Similarly, day after tomorrow, this Guru Granth Sahib ka function hone wale hain. So where do we speak about? Judicial activism is there. Health emergency during Corona, Mr. Narendra Modi did very well. It is not talked about. Financial emergency is in the constitution, not health emergency. So there are evolving situations. Keeping this 50 years of our experience, my understanding is once in 2024, if BJP returns to power, definitely Mohan Bhagwat spoke of Hindu Rashtra. I differ from Mr. Anand because Mohan Bhagwat's focus was totally different. My interpretation, his interpretation may be accepted, but my interpretation is saying that culture is focus, dharmo rakshiti rakshita, which never talked about.
So there are
therefore coming back to that
is coming from
Sanskrit is an important culture. That is why in any speech of Prime Minister, you take it, or BJP ministers, Congress avoided Sanskrit because now in DMK they say Sanskrit ko 600 crore de diya, Hindi ko 600 crore de diya, Tamil ko nahi diya. That type of Kashmiri ko kya diya hai Congress ne? What did they do? Karan Singh wrote about in a leading newspaper about that.
So are the Sanskrit speaking people of Melakot in Karnataka, are they not a linguistic minority? Should their rights not be, are their rights not enshrined in the constitution? Are they getting it? The Kashmiri, Sharda Lipi, Sharda speaking people, their linguistic minorities in Jammu and Kashmir, are they getting their rights? Are we actually looking at minority the way it should be looked at? Should it be looked at it from a national perspective, or should it be looked at it from a regional perspective, and then should our laws? Our founding fathers were visionary enough to understand that. Well, I have run out of time, but it's been a great engaging conversation, and I think we need to have more such conversations. Sanskriti se Samvidhan hona chahiye, Samvidhan se Sanskriti nahi. That is also somebody who told us. It's, I think, somewhere broadly on the lines, who are we as a people our culture, our civilizational ethos defines that, and shouldn't that reflect in the constitution, and shouldn't that constitution then work towards protecting our Sanskriti and of course with it the people of Bharat, the Bharatiya. Madhav Nalapat ji, Arunanand ji, Nupur ji and Rajgopalan ji, thank you very much for a fantastic conversation. Thank you. Namaste.
Good evening, this is Ras Taxam Zaka Jacob. The Bharat Jodo Yatra is all set to enter Rajasthan on the 3rd of December, and just ahead of that, there is a full-blown political war between Ashok Gehlot and his one-time deputy Sachin Pilot. Gehlot is called Pilot Gaddar, Nalayak, Nikamma, the choicest of abuses. But why this open and blatant name-calling, and that too, when the Congress should be